We're back with another episode of TPO. Tyler and Clay ended up interviewing Alex at VOD. This actually ended up being one of my absolute favorite episodes. Alex's mindset throughout the whole thing is fascinating. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this episode.
For every person that has an opinion on how to handle a transition, there's a different opinion. Like no two people have the exact same opinion on how to handle a transition. Some people say, go in and just purposely don't change a thing. Some people go in and say,
there's a lot of dogma.
And someone says, put everyone on the chopping block, like say, hey, you're officially unemployed right now. Here's your new employment agreement if you so choose to work here under these new terms, which is very confrontational. Some people do that because there's some like multi-practice owners that grow things via acquisition, and they say like, here, I don't care what the old terms were, but here are the new terms if you so choose to continue being here. And I definitely skewed more toward the let's maintain where we're at and let's meet you where you are. And I didn't change a lot for the first 6 months. My first 6 months were all about continuity. Like I basically told the team, like,
team wanted that.
Pretend that I'm the seller. Treat me like you treated the seller, because what I want to do is, number one, communicate to the patients that this is not some huge shakeup. Number two, I want to communicate to you guys that I'm here to learn the way this practice works, to audit the way that it goes, and then we're going to incrementally make this thing work for everybody.
Because the reason that you bought it is because it's had success.
Exactly.
And
something's working.
Exactly. The last thing you want to do is shoot the golden goose right in the head. Like, you don't want to do that.
It's what you bought. That's your goodwill.
Yeah, you're buying the goodwill, you're buying the cash flow. And if you do anything crazy, then you might not be able to recoup that. And so like my goal for the first year was replicate. So what was my goal the first year? 1.5, because 1.5 million is what the practice had reliably done the last several years. What did we do the first year? 1.5. Like, we did it. Mission accomplished. Second year, we wanted to hit 2. I thought it was a little grandiose. Well, we hit 2. So it can be done. And so that was a purposeful shift. I was like, okay, it's been a year, and that was my speech to everybody. It's been 1 year. It's our practice now. Like, we're developing our culture. We're having fun at work. Yeah. Because I'm one of the things that I'm constantly working on is the leadership component. And I recently did a team-wide survey where I was like, how are things going? What do we need to work on? What can I improve on? And in the anonymous responses that I got, it was pretty eye-opening and pretty gut-wrenching at the same time, because the things that I thought I was killing it at, I wasn't. And I can think that I am all day long, but if the team doesn't feel that was communicated with them, then that's the truth.
Now, if you're comfortable, give us some examples.
So one example is that there wasn't the pervasive aura of like psychological safety that I felt like there was. Meaning, people didn't feel like they could come to me about things. People didn't feel like I was communicating well enough about directions and goals. And again, the great irony in all that is I thought I was killing it at those things. And so I got the results of these surveys right around Christmas. And so I've been crafting a presentation that outlines like here's how I'm going to be organizing the business going forward. Here's the chain of command. Here's the way that we're going to disseminate information. Here's what the goals are. And here's what I'm going to be committed to working on this year, like better communication, better culture, better psychological safety. And so the lesson there is, don't assume anything. And it's uncomfortable getting that feedback, but you have to solicit that feedback if you want to improve. Like, it sucked reading that stuff.
And definitely the fact that you valued their opinions and genuinely wanted to know, probably helped your relationship with them as well, even though it was like anonymous or whatever.
And there's a fine line there, because you always want to be communicating to the team that you're trying to improve and you're trying to grow, but you should be doing so with the majority in mind. Meaning, I want to broaden my, I don't want to say appeal, but I want to let the majority know, the majority that give a crap, that I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to use their opinions and implement their ideas. you can't be worried about like the people on the fringes that may not be like your A players. And like that right there is like a sign of where I can improve with leadership, because I know there's people that aren't like on the same level as everybody else. Like there's people that may not be like the A players, they may be like the C plus players or the B players on a good day. But I'm not trying to impress everyone. I'm trying to, like, for the people that have the ears to hear, that's who I'm trying to steer the ship for.
How did you, when you're talking about all these things to them, how do you keep it from being all about this is my vision and make it into this is our vision and this is something we're building?
It's a challenge because some people that I've talked to, they literally have a blank whiteboard or a blank presentation, and then they get all these ideas, cull through them, and they like start soliciting all those ideas directly from the team. For me, the way that I'm presenting it this year is I'm taking some of the results from those surveys and I'm saying, like, based on your feedback, this is the direction that we're going to go. So that's my way of weaving that narrative together.
Based on your feedback.
Based on your feedback, okay. Yeah. Not like I'm grabbing this out of the air or this is from my brain and this is what I think because I'm smart and you're not.
I just read this book.
I just read this book. Yeah, I've done that before.
Went to a CE course and I got this idea.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
They get scared when you go to a CE course. You're like, oh God, who's it going to be when he comes back?
Or at least it'll flame up and then it'll be done. He'll go back to normal next week.
Right, exactly.
Weather the storm.
Yeah.
But when you can present it based on like direct quotes from their feedback, it carries a little more weight. When you're able to tell them, like, hey, number one, I cared enough to get your opinion.
Yes.
And number two, I am actually building and crafting our approach based on that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we're getting kind of into, what life was like after you actually bought the practice. And I know we're all about, the pre-stuff, but it's important to know that ahead of time, right? Like you don't want to be kind of figuring that out after you bought the practice.
Right. I think there's some learning curve with any practice ownership, but I think the main things is that what I'm getting from Alex is that clarity is the first and probably the most important thing, right? Because if you don't have the clarity, you're going to be wasting quality time on practices that might not be working for you.
Well, that's exactly it, because you can make, I'm not going to say an irreparable mistake by not having clarity, but you can definitely hinder the progression of your career if you're not clear about what you want to do. Because, I mean, there's people that work for 10 years and they're like, oh, this isn't what I want to do. I'm going to go back to specialize in pedo or ortho or whatever. And to some degree, that's part of your evolution. Like you almost have to put in those years not doing quote unquote what you want to do to figure out what you do want to do. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way. Like, here's my true path. But anything you can do on the front end to be ultra clear about what you want, do it. And I think for the majority of people, it's hard to know what you want coming right out of dental school. You may think you know what you want, but that opinion almost isn't valid until you've been in the trenches and you've seen, like, okay, this is how I respond to clinical stress. This is how I respond to disagreements between teammates. This is how this situation makes me feel. Because you get a taste of that in dental school, but you don't really know. So once you're in the arena of private practice dentistry, then you can start to figure out, here's what I prefer, here's what I don't like, here's the type of practice I want to have. So sometimes that clarity can only really come after that experience. And some people can get a lot of experience shadowing in dental school and figuring out really what they want. They have a family member in the field who's educated them about the pros and cons of different ways to go. But for most people, getting some semblance of real world experience helps that clarity come along.
Could you give us, this may be a big ask, but can you kind of provide like an example of your clarity of vision, like what your practice looked like or what it looks like now? Like just kind of give people an idea of the things that they really should know when they go into this.
I think as much as you can, nail down how many days a week you want to work, what you want your income to be, what you want your practice to look like in terms of how many dentists. Do you want to work in a group? Do you want to be solo? Do you want 2 hygienists? Do you want 4 hygienists? Do you want to work in a, I don't know, like in a small town, big city? Like, what do you value? Because everyone talks about going rural. Everyone talks about being in the small town, go where the opportunity is. Not everyone's wired for that. Like, if you want amenities and you want to be near the Broadway shows and you want to be right by the airport, then no amount of money is going to make it worth going rural. So, like, figuring out what you care about, what your spouse cares about, what your non-negotiables are, that's critically important. And it's hard to do that, and it's hard to sit down and crank out that list and live and die by it, because it feels self-limiting. And a lot of us are so used to rolling with the punches in dental school, and you're like, oh, I can figure it out, I can make it work wherever. But clarity is key, and that's something that I've struggled with, and in hindsight that would have shortened some of the curve. Absolutely.
What would you say to somebody who says, okay, I get you, clarity, we got to have that. I know what I want, I know where I want to live, all this kind of stuff, but say the person has some other objections. Say, I don't want, okay, it's too much debt for me, or any other reason other than, okay, I have the clarity, now what?
Right.
What about these, what are some other issues that could come up that you can kind of give some advice on?
I think the debt factor is a big impediment for a lot of people, but to me, it's all about the cash flow. Like, if your practice is cash flowing to the point where you can easily clear that debt payment hurdle and still be making more than you were as an associate, then it's a no-brainer. That's why banks want to see the production history of the practice. That's why you should want to see that too. Owner's tax returns, all that stuff. That's the big hurdle. I honestly don't think about debt. Like, it doesn't enter my brain. It's just a payment. It's just a check I write every month.
In your business debt, the debt that you took on to get into the opportunity you're in, it's not exactly the same as like student debt.
No.
You can think of it a little differently.
Yeah, and that's,
even though you're not thinking of it a whole lot apparently.
No,
And I like that.
It's a necessary evil. Like, it's
a barrier to entry.
Cost of doing business,
Well,
right?
Comes with the territory.
And you listen to like Dave Ramsey, for instance, and Dave Ramsey is very unequivocally against debt. He black and white is like, debt is bad. And I've spoken to someone who spoke off the record with Dave at one point about the student loan debt as it relates to dental offices or business acquisitions, and then the true response that I was told about was, his audience is normally like salaried employees with a finite amount of income, not business owners.
Great advice for a lot of people.
That's it. It applies to
the masses.
It applies to the masses. Therefore, the mindset that we have to have can't be the mindset that the masses have. It doesn't apply. The normal rules don't apply.
We have higher ceilings.
Exactly. So, am I worried about the debt? I'm not worried about the debt. Do you want to get into like absurd consumer debt? No, I don't get in consumer debt, but like the practice debt that I have, the real estate debt I have from my office space, I don't think about it, because I know that in less than 8 years now, I'm not going to have a practice note. Less than 5 years now, I won't have a real estate note. And then that's just like a pay raise that I'll get, like a massive pay raise in a few years.
Great.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
it's cool.
Because I mean, it's just what's at the end of the month. Like, are you in the black? You're in the red.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is just, that's a lump somewhere else, right?
Right, and that's kind of the weird mental gymnastics that you have to go through as a practice owner, because if your accountant's good, then it's hard to know how much money you're making.
Right, yeah.
Right, because they're putting it like, okay, you're paying yourself rent over here, and then you're depreciating this piece of equipment over here, and like you said, as long as you're in the black, like, you're good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to your original question, Clay, like the debt's a big factor for a lot of people, and I think it's the fear of the unknown is another factor for a lot of people, of like, am I going to get stricken with the imposter syndrome and think that, wow, who am I to lead all these people? Who am I in my 20s, probably, when you buy an office, to lead this team of 50-somethings that could be your mom or your grandma sometimes.
That's a tough relationship to lead and to be with and kind of interact with.
It is, and you have to find your style. Like with me, I'm firm but relaxed at the same time. Like I do joke around, I do show appreciation. I'm not like a complete hard ass, like don't ever laugh at me or anything, but you have to find your best way to interact with your team.
Yeah.
Because if you come in guns blazing and trying to show everybody how tough you are, then
People are running for the hills.
yeah, they're going to run away. But then at the same time, if you are a complete buddy all the time, then they test the limits, and then you get in trouble doing that too.
How ready for all that were you when you bought out? How ready did you feel, rather?
I felt pretty ready because I was pretty resolute in saying like I'm going to figure this out. Like there's going to be some moments of major suckage, but
There was unknown. You were just comfortable with that.
Yeah, I
Or
just
settled with it.
You have to be
and
comfortable with being uncomfortable.
precisely. And it's just like when that switch flips to say like I'm ready for this. When you're saying I'm ready for this, you know that you don't know it all, but you know that you can conquer whatever challenges pop up.
So I think that some people, they get that idea that when they're associating, they're going to learn these things, and then at some point they're going to feel comfortable.
No.
And say, yeah, okay, now I get all the ins and outs. I can recreate this somewhere else. And that time doesn't really come because they just didn't allow themselves to accept that discomfort.
Right. And whether you've been an associate for 5 years or 5 decades, there's going to be stuff that you don't know as an owner.
So being ready doesn't mean I know everything about this. This is, it's just, it has to be a point where you're okay with not knowing and put yourself in a good position and get people in your corner that can kind of help navigate those waters.
Instead of ready, aim, fire, it's ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could, with the knowledge you have now as a practice owner, looking back maybe as a dental student, what advice would you give yourself other than clarity? I think we've kind of touched on that, but other than clarity, what would you do as a dental student to
Speak to young Alex. Young
as
naive Alex.
well as an associate?
Become interested in your future. Because as a dental student, I was only focused on surviving. I was focused on getting the bare minimum things done, spending the least amount of time in clinic, hanging out, not bettering myself. Like, don't buy into the toxic mindset that it's so easy to lapse into in dental school. Like, there's a life after dental school. Start thinking about it, start preparing for it, start treating it like it's a job. Because I was still in like college mode in dental school of just going to class, going through the motions, not being really engaged a lot of the time, not asking a lot of astute questions, not leveraging all the relationships that I could have been building with some of the professors that actually knew what they were talking about. There's a lot of wasted opportunity for networking and for growth in dental school and in the first couple of years out. But I would try to say something to myself to light that fire earlier than it was lit. Like, you guys, for whatever confluence of circumstances, had a fire lit under you at a younger point than I did and than what a lot of people do. Because there's people 20 years older than you guys, older than me, that still don't have that fire in their belly to succeed and to grow and to do well. And the earlier you get that in you, the better. And because look at what happens. Like, Clay, your opportunity, Tyler, the opportunity that you're invariably going to find here soon. I mean, I don't know. You have the right motivation, the right things happen.
Yeah, and we were kind of having a similar conversation over dinner last night, and I was kind of talking about that flipping of the switch, and I identify with that so much. And I was very fortunate to have that switch flipped early. I think it could have come 10 years later. I don't think there's anything about me that made it happen earlier. It was just a confluence of circumstances, just like you're saying. There's probably an alternate universe where I'm just dicking around in dental school. Honestly. I mean, seriously.
That's impossible.
But what I want to impart in listeners is that there doesn't have to be anything special about you for that switch to flip. It just, when it happens, and it's magical and it's ass on fire. And, I want it to happen sooner for people because I think there's a lot more return in that. But as long as it happens, like it's life altering. Like everything changes.
And I know everyone's timeline's different, right?
Yeah.
But if you know that practice ownership is going to be in your future, do it sooner rather than later.
Now,
I guess would be my point too. Alex, what do you think about that?
No, I think as a rule, yes, with the caveat, for some people, you could do it too soon. I think.
Right.
If you aren't mentally ready, if you aren't mentally prepared, because the skills you can work around. You can hide or you can camouflage, but
the hard skills.
But yeah, the hard skills you can make up for that if you buy the correct practice or have the correct associate or whatever. But the soft skills, the coping, one of the really good, well, both of the really good speakers that we had this morning at Voices of Dentistry, Mike DeTola and Josh Austin, both of their speeches had elements about unhealthy coping mechanisms that dentists tend to develop. And it's very easy to get in over your head if you're not mentally prepared for that. Whether that's you engage in drugs or illicit stuff, like that's an easy thing to have happen if you get in over your head. So having that firm core foundation of here's my support system, here's how I handle stress, that's key. Like getting that in place first and then jumping into practice ownership is probably the correct order, but it's obviously not going to happen that way for everybody.
Right. And getting into practice ownership sooner rather than later maybe not mean straight out of school by practice. It might, that your path might be, I know that I want to do practice ownership. I'm going to try to get my clarity set, my mindset right, and that might mean I have to go through one or two associateships to eventually figure out enough about myself, as well as developing my leadership, and then that means that you're ready now to find that practice.
Sure.
Alex, what is your short list for mental preparedness? Like, if someone came up to you and was like, dude, I really respect what you're doing. I see how well you tide the storm or whatever. Like, how do you do it? Like, just give them the footnotes. Like, this is how I'm going to get you centered.
I think number one is exercise. Like I try to make it to where
physical exercise.
Yeah, physical exercise. I bust my in the mornings with a trainer doing CrossFit stuff, so that I know that the most trying part
Alex
of my day.
Is super built, by the way.
Yeah,
that's
Captain
false.
American-esque.
Whatever.
Yes.
The hardest part of my day always occurs before 6:30 a.m. because that way I know, like, man, I conquered that horrible workout, so the rest of the day is going to be easy.
Do cold showers?
Sometimes I do cold finishes on the showers. Like I do that for like hopefully a minute is what I shoot for. I don't know how those crazy people do like entire cold showers. It's nuts.
Yeah, it just seems painful.
Just go to prison.
Yeah, but yeah, no thanks. That's a whole different level of mental preparedness. But so physical exercise is very important for me because I notice a major difference in how I feel, how I act, how I cope with things. Things bother me more when I'm edgy from not having exercise, so that's key. Sleep is important. For me, it's a minimum of 6 hours. If I get 6, I'm good. If I get 7, I'm great. It's also having someone to be able to talk to bounce things off of, because I'm not the most naturally communicative person when it comes to talking about struggles. You have to sort of coax it out of me. I just tend to internalize it. So like I've gotten really good about talking through stuff with my wife, who's a very good listener and a good encourager. So having someone like that, a lot of people say like your spouse isn't the best person to do that with, but it's better than nothing.
True.
And yeah, so having a support system of some kind, exercise, sleep, support system, and having some type of framework mentally, and you get that bit by bit from reading the different personal development books, but like focusing on what you can control, not worrying about politics and wars and stuff that you have no bearing on.
Circle of influence, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I learned that at Scheduling Institute way back in the day when I went as an associate. Like the the locus of control of what you can actually move the needle on versus like I have no impact on this. I'm not even going to worry about it. That was very instructive.
And that's huge, because I think a lot of people's barriers to whatever, it could be practice ownership, it could be anything in life, is just things worrying about things that you can't control, and having that internal loci of control.
Well, we spoke earlier about efficiency, like making your life more efficient, cutting down on things that you are responsible for. It's the same in your brain. Like when you delegate things to other people, you're like, okay, mentally that's on their plate. I have to check on it every once in a while, but the fewer things I have to do and worry about, the more you can actually focus on the things that do have high value.
Would you say that you've kind of distilled your life down a little bit to where it's just dentistry? Like you've made it so efficient, but it's just like it's your executive decisions working on your business. Like that's what you're doing a majority of the time.
I'm trying to. Like
That's what you want?
That's what I want. And that's where those surveys that I did, I found out like I wasn't doing a good enough job at empowering the people around me. I still do way too much. I still micromanage way more than I think I do. And so that's where, like, actually next week I'm having a meeting with everybody where I'm rolling out, like, here's the organizational structure. Here's what everyone's roles are. Here's who you ask if you have this question. I'm doing clinical things. I'm answering clinical questions. I am focusing on this. And if you have questions about HR or Susie was mean to Rebecca or whatever, then that's going to be taken up with office manager over here. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
You're asking for time off.
You're
office
not getting
manager.
drawn in quarters.
Yeah. And so like as a practice owner, you figure out how much of each element you want to have on your plate. And I think it's good to be able to do all those things and be in control of all those things, so no one walks over you or no one embezzles you. Like having your finger on the pulse of everything at first is key, because I'd heard all those stories about if you delegate, you tend to abdicate, and then stuff just doesn't happen the right way. So I micromanaged. I paid the price for it by people not feeling empowered, and now I'm trying to swing the pendulum the other direction by making sure they know what they can do and what my expectations are.
So what is delegation without abdication for you?
To me, it's trusting but verifying. I think that was a Scott Luna quote from Breakaway, where like you say, okay, you're going to do, here's your list of roles and here's a check sheet. Give me the check sheet at the end of the day. And then I have to have the wherewithal to know, like, okay, I'm going to get up and audit things at a predetermined basis. And like for me, that's going to take the form of a monthly meeting with my office manager to go over new patients, AR, things like that, so that I'm aware and I'm like abreast of the situation, but I'm not like poring over reports every single day.
Okay, so I want to shift gears just a little bit and kind of zoom out. What is your long-term vision? Like, are you building something that you can walk away from in like 5 years and like retire early? Are you wanting to work until your back breaks? Well, not because you're working so hard, but just because you're like 90.
Right.
Like, what's your idea?
That's where I'm still trying to get clarity. I want to have the option. I want to build it to where I have the option to walk away if I want to.
You're not needed.
Yeah, to where
Does that mean clinically, or
I mean,
walk away like your personal financial situation?
both. I mean, the sooner I can get to that point to where I can walk away due to being financially independent and because I'm not needed clinically, both of those are very desirable for me. And I'd love to get my practice to the point where both of those things are a reality. And for me, that means like making sure that there's plenty of associates, plenty of providers to where it's I'm not the linchpin clinically anymore. And so at some point that'll mean, another associate, me doing only certain procedures, me having reduced clinical days every month. Like in the next couple of years, that'll be part of the conversation.
Where are you seeing yourself at clinically? Like if you're only having to do what you like, what does that look like for you?
Well, for me, that would be placing single easy implants and taking easy implant crown impressions and doing hygiene checks and bothering people. Like that sounds fun to me.
That's your ideal day.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, and that's not going to be universal. Like not everybody's going to like that stuff.
Right.
But
Yeah, and
you.
that's why you hire associates that are cool with doing a bunch of fillings and doing.
You're going to do what I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, and then being upfront about that, just so no one's
tell 'em
feelings
that?
get hurt. Yeah. Well, right now, no, it's a more equitable division of labor between me and my current associate. But whenever we grow and I hire another one to augment us, then that'll be the conversation. Like, hey, here's the express
You're
purpose.
picking up the slack.
Yeah. Like, here's the things that I'm going to need you to do a bunch of because I don't want to do those things. Yeah.
But that's good. I think that comes from clarity. And,
Yeah,
and you're,
exactly.
you're the
Yeah.
practice owner. And
Exactly.
it's like,
Yeah.
you are so, I mean, you have the vision and clarity to say, hey, here's where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So what steps do I need to take to get to that point? And that might mean growing, adding associates. I mean, all these things that kind of come with practice ownership.
Right.
But I think it all starts with, what do you want? I know it's a simple question, like
Yeah.
we said before, but it's
Yeah.
super, super hard to answer.
Well, in this setting, you have to be okay with making a smaller percentage of the total pie.
From a bigger pie.
Right, exactly. Relative to smaller pie, bigger percentage as a solo owner. And so you're also building an asset because like if you grow your practice to whatever multiple of where it was, that's equity. That's valuable. Even if you're not like making a lot more take home or your expenses go up, like it's still an asset to grow that practice via adding providers and associates and all that. Even if you don't want to sell, like it's still a valuable asset. And then you could, sell a part to a partner and like have flexibility, have options that aren't available to a smaller office.
So you don't necessarily have your exit strategy down?
No, not at all.
So you don't necessarily need to have that prior to buying then?
No.
That can be something you kind of figure out later.
Right, yeah, because that, to me, that's something that is almost impossible to map out.
How could you possibly know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, having options, like having an option to where if you have a freak injury or you have something happen to where you have to exit from clinical dentistry for a while, having the systems in place to where it can run without you
Yeah.
is very important. And I'm not there yet. I'm working on it, but that's the goal.
Yeah. And being in your ownership position, how much freedom are you still having to, I mean, you're here. So like how much time are you having on hand to go out and learn more stuff? Like you feel like you have the freedom to do
Yeah,
that,
I could
it's
do
just
that every weekend.
Yeah.
If I wanted to.
That's sick.
Wife permitting. Yeah, I mean, because like with
Well, she comes along
she
to
does.
a lot
Yeah,
of these things. So.
she does. Yeah, but like,
But you have a life outside of dentistry.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
As-
However much you want of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
However much I want.
You don't
of it.
have to be doing all the things you're doing.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can create your own existence.
Yeah.
As much as you want to, and you can make it as dental centric as you want, or as leadership centric as you want.
It's so empowering. I mean, just you have control of your own future. Like to me, that just makes me want to like grab life by the horn,
Well,
and just
only as a practice owner though. Like you.
that's
Man,
important.
It's how much do you value that? Like some people, they don't need that control. They're cool with passively being an employee, and if that works for them, wonderful. We
Right.
need those kinds of people to make the world go round.
But that doesn't provide the same freedoms.
No,
You know, like it has its own restrictions.
it
too.
has a lot of hindrances that come
It
with
does.
it.
Yeah.
Because the I don't want to say it's a lie, but the illusion is that you have fewer responsibilities, but by
You have
having
more obligations though.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think that a lot of people coming out of school, I mean, people's journeys are different, but like you're still in your 20s, you just graduated, you're like not in the academic pipeline for the first time in your life, and you're starting to make a little money, and you're like, yeah, I got to travel. I got a lot of the world to see before I'm like tacking myself down to ownership, and ownership almost seems like, well, this is my anchor now. I got to be right here. I got to be working on this, and you want to push that off because you're like, that's a mid-30s.
See, that's a
40s.
phenomenal point that
Yeah.
has never once crossed my mind, because to me the ownership angle outweighed the quote-unquote freedom
Yeah.
angle. Because I guess if you want to travel and you want to have the ability to take a month off and go do something crazy, I mean you can do that as an associate, presumably. Like you work for a year and then you're like, I'm gonna change jobs, take a month off, and then go work somewhere else. Yeah, that's a different level of freedom that you could have without being a practice owner. But if you engineer it the right way, you could have that as a practice owner too.
Could you take a month off as a practice owner right now?
Right now, no.
Yeah.
No way.
But if that was your goal, I mean, you could probably set
make
it
it
up.
work.
You
set
could
it
build
up.
it. You could build it to where you could.
Sick.
Yeah. I mean, you could. Like, you could find a retired dentist to come in and check hygiene for a month. Or, I mean, you could do it. I could engineer it. It would be messy and it wouldn't be perfect, but you could do it. But, yeah, I mean, that's a great point where if you're young, you're single, you want to experience certain things, like that's the easiest way to go about it is just have a job. And then between jobs, go travel. Because as a practice owner, like even if you are a devotee of like the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week methodology, where you do the bare minimum number of hours to keep the business afloat, like there's still some input required.
Yeah. You do have to be
For sure.
present to a degree.
But I think just even knowing that about yourself, right? Knowing that, hey, I'm young, I'm single, I want to experience this cool city. Like that, to me, is more clarity than just kind of letting life,
Yeah.
letting life happen to you.
Yeah. That even that level of clarity is probably not all that common. Some people have that.
Right.
And it would have been good to have any kind of clarity younger. Well, because you come out of dental school knowing that you don't know everything. And then my tendency was like, I'm going to figure it out as I go. And that's good, but
I hear that a lot.
But the earlier you can establish what you're wanting, you shorten that learning curve immensely.
Yeah.
So really quickly, kind of shifting gears towards more benefits of practice ownership. You don't have to go into numbers, but as far as income, we can get into the generalities. But as an associate versus an owner, what are those differences?
3 to 4 times.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and part of that was maybe I didn't
Probably the right practice.
Well, yeah, it's the right practice, but it's part of it is you work a lot harder to make a dollar as an associate because it requires your 2 hands doing the work for every dollar that you make as an associate.
And how is that different as an owner then?
Well, if you have a team of hygienists doing prophies, doing x-rays, doing fluoride, sealants, desensitizers, then that's a lot of passive income. I mean, it's active in that you're managing, but it's passive in that you can be sitting in your office not working on teeth and still generating revenue.
That's the business part.
That's the business part.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. So, you buy the right practice, it's a factor of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to all you associates out there,
Well, sometimes, associates have in their mind, I'm making good money
Yeah.
as an associate.
And that's fine.
No, it's fine.
Some people could call it
Yeah.
golden handcuffs. I would probably call it golden
Yeah.
handcuffs.
But for some people too, they think that the mental gymnastics that you go through as an owner, no amount of money is worth being on call or being constantly embattled by the issues of the practice. Like some people just don't want that stress. They're that scared of that stress that it's not worth making more money to take that risk.
money doesn't equal happiness.
No. Yeah.
Are you 3 to 4 times happier?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Money is happiness.
But that's
I can explain that algorithmically now.
But that's the point though, is that if you're not going to be more fulfilled, more happy being an owner, the money is not going to make it better by itself. For some people, it might. For some people, if they make that much more money, no matter what they're doing, they're going to tell themselves they're happier. But at the end of the day, it's a life that you're living too. Like it has to make sense in the context of your life. And some people want dentistry to just be a small part of their lives where they clock in, clock out, go home. And then other people are okay with building a business, training people. There's a place for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people want to teach at a dental school their whole life. Some people want to own 50 practices and everything in between.
This is just Tyler speaking. I've heard other people talk about it, but I don't really like the idea of, or just the general concept of work-life balance.
Sure.
Like, to me, when I try to visually conceptualize that, it's like there's just, it's like a seesaw, and on one end of it is work, and the other end is life, and
Yeah.
they're mutually exclusive and always in opposition.
No such thing.
And I just hate that idea.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is so limiting, because then it's like, if I'm working, I'm not living,
Yeah.
and those two are in just constant contrapose, and I hate that. I hate that.
You can't put those in boxes. You can't put
Yeah.
those separately.
Yeah.
Because there's inevitable bleed through between the
Has to be.
two sides. And that presupposes that if you're at work, you're not happy and you're not like living your life if
Yeah.
you're at work.
And you're at work half the time.
Yeah.
Almost.
If not more.
If not more.
Yeah.
So you just shorten your life by half.
Well, and I think the work-life balance phrase probably comes from like sitting in the cubicle doing boring, pointless tasks for days.
The
and-
cube farm. Oh.
years
Oh,
on
my
end.
gosh.
And so that's where, like, if you're seriously doing something that doesn't bring you any value or any purpose or any joy, then you're at the point where you're having to do work-life balance.
Yeah.
And that's when you need to reevaluate, okay, if this is not making me happy, if this isn't moving the needle on me becoming a better person or the person I want to be, then let's do something different.
Yeah.
Because that's where the ownership part of it, like work to live, live to work. I mean, it's different for everybody, but if you want integrating your practice into your life, making it part of your life to where it's like, I'm not miserable while I'm here, I'm fulfilled while I'm here. That's the dream.
I think that's what ownership is.
It is, because you
Yeah.
don't feel like you have to, and this can happen to your detriment. Like if you feel like you don't have to unplug from it, then that can be good and bad, because then you cross boundaries, and then that's where the workaholic tendencies can creep in and have problems. But everyone's measure for that is different, I think.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I'm glad we touched on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That topic does kind of annoy me, because I'm like, I don't want to be miserable while I'm at the office. I don't think my team wants to be miserable either.
Yeah.
And so if everything's going to be, if I can elevate that work, the time I'm at work, that's going to elevate my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Make me more fulfilled.
Don't you want to be able to customize that, and not just like, because like if you're working for someone else and you don't like the culture there, that generally just means, well, now I just got to go find another job.
Right, and I think
Not-
that's ownership gives you that
Yeah.
that ability to enhance and change the culture at your office so that you can change your life.
Yeah.
As that's kind of the biggest allure to ownership for me, is that it gives me more freedom. It gives me more ability to change. If I don't like the situation that I'm in, it's no one else's fault but mine.
Yeah.
Right.
And that could be scary. And
Not
you're-
everybody wants that responsibility,
right.
though.
But it's also empowering. You have the ability to change anything about your life you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Well, I think that we have touched on some pretty amazing stuff from like start to finish of your journey, Alex. I really appreciate your time and all your words. I think this has probably been one of my favorite interviews that I've conducted, to be honest. So I just really want to thank you for participating in it, Alex. And you've been such a huge proponent of what Shared Practices preaches, but you're also at a point now where you can come back and contribute to it. And I think things have really come full circle for you. So I'm admiring it.
Well, thank you, and
Yeah.
I'm in awe of what you guys have been able to do at such young ages, and the amount of wisdom you guys have to even ask the right questions is pretty outstanding to me, and also just the fact that there's getting to be a pretty strong contingent of us that basically cut our teeth on shared practices early on, to where like we're now in that stage of ownership. But that's why it's critical for you guys to do this segment, because that's where shared practices started, with all the angst and all the pre-ownership stuff. Like that's, for me, that's the most fun stuff to listen to.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to stoke those flames even as an owner, and like don't forget like the hunger and the desire, because that's what keeps you improving.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alex, if someone wants to ask you questions or pick your brain a little bit, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, just find me on Facebook, Alex Sharp, and Sharp Family Dentistry.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Alex, I think we should all kind of disperse and get back into the festivities. And Just want to thank the audience for hanging on for this one. I know it was a bit of a long interview, but if you stuck it out this long, I think you realize that you spent your time well.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Clay. Thanks, Tyler.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. I hope you guys liked that episode as much as I did. I'm going to let Tyler and Clay take it away.
I echo your sentiments there, Aaron. I think that's the best episode that we recorded. I think we've had a bunch of really great guests on. Alex is a really special person. I kind of knew that going into the interview, but as it was going along, listening to his whole journey, it really brought home how at some point along the way, something clicked. There was no going back, and he became so incredibly obsessive. And I hope that's really coming through for everyone. It's just how much he lives and breathes this stuff, but there's not really a hint of burnout. There's a hint of balance in it. But I think he also had a lot of words of wisdom that I'm hoping you guys can kind of elaborate on.
Interviewing him, it was a dream, man. I mean, he was so easy to interview, and just his mindset and his clarity, just like you said, Tyler, just came through. And I told these guys off air, but he's kind of a dental crush, you know? I mean, he's just killing it. No, I think he has a lot to offer, and I think listeners can sense that. The desire for him to succeed outweighed the risk of practice ownership. Alex kind of had a different experience with mailers. What were your thoughts on that, Aaron?
In our ownership accelerator, we have a whole section on creating mailers. And in that section, we create a mailer with an 8x7 mailer with a picture, and you kind of write your little story and say, reach out to me if you have any opportunities. Alex actually sent out handwritten notes. I feel that he got a lot more traction doing it that way rather than sending it out the stale, I don't want to say corporate, but like
it's boilerplate.
It wasn't necessarily. It wasn't necessarily from the heart. I have a buddy that had the exact same experience where he sent out some mailers that we did it to. He sent it to those certain doctors, and then he sent out another mailer that was more like a handwritten from the heart note to the same doctors that he sent the previous mailer to, and he got a much bigger response from the handwritten personal note.
So, I mean, I think that all kind of sums it up. Hope you guys got a lot from it, and I want to hear what you thought. So as always, you can email us at sbtheinterns at gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook with some thoughts, or hit up Alex. Let him know what you thought. I think it would mean a lot to him. See you guys next week.